And we're back, and we just finished watching 2020's Nomadland, directed by Academy Award winner Chloé Zhao. It's the story of a woman who has apparently lost a lot in life and decides to embark on this transient journey across America, I guess, and along the way forms friendships and bonds and almost like a second chance at family through all these people that she's met along the way. The main character's name is Fern, wonderfully played by the always wonderful Frances McDormand. And it's a lovely movie. It's a lovely, lovely movie. I wasn't particularly wowed by it. There were some very poignant scenes in it, and a lot of it touched me, but I still felt like the ending felt very vague to me. Her whole existence felt almost vague to me. Like, I never felt like I connected with her. I felt like I got more from the background characters. The scene with Bob, I thought was very poignant. The scene with the sister Dolly, I felt was very poignant. There were scenes with a gentleman suitor, I guess. I'm not really sure how to describe Dave, but I felt like some of those scenes were nicely done. The relationship that she had with like the Swanky character and the Linda May character, I also felt, and it's not to say that Frances McDormand isn't a great actress, because obviously she is.
I mean, I feel like she was playing this character very well.
She did. But
it just, the character itself was very shut off. The character, right. As you watch the movie and you pick up a certain detail when she's visiting her sister, the sister basically says, you left, you married this guy that you've only knew a couple of months, and you moved out to the middle of nowhere, and you stayed there even after he passed away. And from that, to me, it was the character that you saw Frances McDormand portraying. That was, I'm guessing, how she was her whole life. She wanted to get away. She wanted to basically escape this life that she had as a child, which didn't seem bad. I don't think there was any kind of abuse or anything. There was no drama like that, because anytime you saw pictures of her growing up, like old pictures and whatnot, it seemed like she looked at them fondly, especially her relationship with her father. I don't think she had a bad relationship with her sister. No. It was just the type of person that she was. She was a nomad. It was just born into her. It was just part of who she was. And the way it made it sound later on, when you pick up that other detail, when she's talking to the Santa Claus guy, Bob? She's talking to Bob. She basically says something along the lines of, she married Bo, she moved to this town that he wanted to live in, lived there, and she stayed there even after she was gone, because she believed that so long as you remembered you're alive. I think she said something that her dad said. Mm-hmm. And everybody loved Bo, and the town loved him, and he loved the town, and that's why she stayed there. And that was about as close to her settling as could be. And then it was like the town was just taken away, and that pretty much just, I don't know, I almost get the impression that the town going away wasn't something she viewed as necessarily a bad thing, I guess, because then she could go. Home is what was the saying? Home is she read it off that tattoo on that dude's arm. Home
it was a woman.
Oh, sorry.
Oh God, it was a good quote too.
Was it a Morrissey quote? Because her arm was like dedicated to Morrissey.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm trying to remember what the song and the line was. I can't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was like home isn't a word. Home isn't just a word. It's It's something you carry with you, or so. I don't know. Whatever.
Yes.
Regardless of that fact, even though she portrayed herself, I mean, she was clearly not a barrel of laughs. I don't think she was upset with the situation that her life was in. Like, she wasn't like cursing capitalism and how the town was ruined because nobody wanted gypsum in America anymore or something like that. She was just moving on, and she had opportunities to not live that life. Her sister was like, you could stay here. Dave was like, you could stay here.
Yeah.
Even
Linda May.
Linda May was like, when I build my house, you'll be able to stay with me as much as you want, and all of that. And the most important thing to her was to keep moving, and her van was super important. I mean, the dam, like when she needed to get it repaired, the repairs, they basically said, you might as well just buy a new van.
Mm-hmm.
But she couldn't because the van was so personalized in her life,
right,
that it had a value that could not be measured, and which makes sense because she did a lot of stuff to make that van her home. But I mean, overall, as something that I would say, don't go into this movie thinking that you're going to be taken on an entertaining adventure of any kind. This is not that. This is pretty much a meditation on solitude, and I don't even know if you could say this is like a meditation on grief, because she was sad. You could see there was a point where she was almost brought to tears when she found her husband's jacket, I think.
Yeah, in the beginning.
She seemed sad when her father's plates broke, but there was no massive crying jags or anything like that, or anything. She was just getting on with her life and realizing this is who I am. And the seed was always there, because the fondest thing she remembered about Empire was her backyard, which looked out onto endless deserts until it reached the mountains. So, and basically, this life she was leading was now her life fulfilled.
I didn't read it at all like that. I read it as, I agree with some, like, the stuff about how the scene with Dolly and Fern, the two sisters, was interesting because you get a glimpse into what Fern was. And I think that Fern was always this good and decent person. Like when she hooked her sister up with the George character, she's like, if you're not serious, you leave him be, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it turned out that the relationship that started because of the introduction of Fern, Dolly then marries George and has this wonderful life, right? They have this beautiful house, he has a successful career, this, that, and the other thing. But I think what was interesting about that scene was that Dolly said to her, you saw me even before I saw myself, and I needed that. And then you went away, and I really could have used you in my life. And it felt like Dolly always had this door open, but maybe Fern just didn't know how to connect with people in that way. I think she very much loved Beau, her husband, that she was willing to go with him wherever it was that he went. I don't think she specifically picked the town of Empire. I think she just kind of went along for the ride.
No, I think she said that he wanted to live there.
Right. And I think
maybe that he grew up there or something, or regardless, he had a connection to that place.
Right. And where I think I deviate from your line of thought is that when I think she does put value on certain things, certain items and certain things carry a weight to them. It was interesting at the beginning, she's at the storage facility and she doesn't take a lot. She takes the box of the plates that were something that meant something to her because they came from her father, and the jacket that obviously belonged to her husband. So these two things she took with her, and the plates were important because they tethered her to her past, to her family, to her father, and that part in her life. And I agree with you. I think when she looked at those pictures of when she was a child, she was happy. And I think that happiness came from being young and being just full of wonder and possibilities of things that happen. She's now in the twilight of her life, right? She is probably, I mean, that's such a weird sentence or weird terminology that we use, one foot in the grave, right? She's closer to death than she is to the beginnings of her life, right? So I think in this time, she sort of became more of this withdrawn person, this person who's built these walls to not get hurt, this person who protects themselves. There's that scene where the guy's like knocking on the van and she's frightened. She's very frightened. I'm leaving, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think she does whatever it is that she needs to do to survive, kind of, right? And I think just, it felt like you never know. I mean, time is so strange in this movie because you don't know when things happen. I don't know how far ago her husband died or any of those things, right? I mean, you know that, was it 2011 was when the town shut down or whatever, or within that time frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get a sense of that, but you don't get a sense of other things, like when exactly did Bo die, how much further after his death was she still in the town, stuff like that. So time just seems very strange here, and I'm assuming even more so when you live such a transient life, although she was very responsible with her jobs. She needed to work. She made the effort to go to, I don't know, like a staffing agency to look for work. She, I guess, was a seasonal employee for Amazon. She was always there. You see her at the beginning going to her seasonal job right around Christmas, because you hear the guy say, "Merry Christmas, see you next year." And then at the end, kind of bookended, towards the end, she goes back to the Amazon job. And she's built like this little comfortable network of, I guess, friends and acquaintances that know her.
Yeah, she definitely has a routine.
Yes, and she's also very kind. I mean, in the scenes where you just see her walking through the little RV camps, everyone seems to know her. She has a smile. She's never angry or overly sad in this movie, although this film, to me, was the embodiment of sadness. I mean, it wasn't like one particular thing, but it was just the whole mood of the film, of the story itself.
Oh yeah, it's a very downbeat movie.
Yeah, it's a very downbeat movie, and I didn't understand if it was part of Fern's story that made it so depressing, or just the overall scope of the movie, how these people live these lives and stuff. And then Bill also shares that heartbreaking experience of his own that, I guess, led him to this lifestyle. And it felt like a lot of these people, whether they were running away from trauma or running away from bad business choices or running away from bad marriages or whatever it was, they all came together and they formed this community, which was very loving and giving. And it was interesting because here's a woman that doesn't have very much, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she always seemed like the first person to give something, even if it was just something as minuscule as a cigarette. So to me, it felt like, part of me felt like there was some social awkwardness to her, and I feel like maybe Bo was and again, this is all speculation, right? Because we're not given too many clues. And when I was watching the film, I got the impression that Bo was like this larger than life character, and she was sort of fell completely in love. I mean, you come to find out after months they get married, right? And then she just didn't know how to, I guess, maneuver life without Bo.
I don't know about that. She seemed to be doing...
I mean, she was doing fine. She was surviving, but it felt very empty. I mean,
I feel
the
like
Dave character tries to basically open up himself and say, listen, I would love for you to stay here.
well, the thing with that was Dave had settled down. Dave was in a set location.
But that was also funny because he even says to her, I didn't expect to stay.
Yeah.
But then seeing his grandson obviously changed him.
Yeah.
To the point where he didn't need to have air in his tires. And that was her big giveaway, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not even taking care of your van. He's like, oh, well, I don't really need it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's like a birth of a grandchild is a life-changing moment, you know, and it'll change your whole perspective on life. Fern
never had kids.
She never had kids of her own.
And lost her husband.
She lost her husband, so the life-changing moment for her, I mean, aside from the death of her husband, was the town just vanishing. And that was probably her only tether to a settled life. And like I said before, I don't think she wanted this settled life. She wanted to roam.
I don't know if she wanted to roam because
her sister pretty much says as much as you left.
She left because of Beau, but I don't think that. And even after Beau's gone, like
Beau's gone, she said she stayed out of obligation to the town because she felt obligated to keep Beau's memory alive.
Right.
But now the town was gone.
Right.
There's nobody to keep the memory alive too.
But she was basically forced into this nomadic lifestyle.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, because if the town hadn't gone under, she still would have stayed.
If the town had gone under, she still would have fulfilled that obligation that she felt she had to fulfill. But an obligation is an obligation. It's not something that you want.
Right.
It's something you have to do.
Right.
And I get more of the feeling that she was more content being on the road than being in that house anymore.
No, I totally get that too.
Or being in any house.
Right.
She
didn't feel.
She's like, I can't. When she's with her sister, she's like, I can't stand being underneath this roof. There's no way I could sleep in this bed. Even when she went to Dave's house, beautiful room, large bed to sleep in, she goes out and sleeps in her van.
Yeah.
This is who she is. Mm-hmm. This is what she wants. To walk around in the middle of the woods. She doesn't even need anybody. When they go off together to Dinosaur Land or whatever the hell Dave was working at that particular moment, he's like showing everybody, these are dinosaur fossils and pockets in the rocks and whatnot. She just left. That was kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, that's why I feel like she was like socially awkward because it was like. She really, and now I'm wondering, did she even love Beau? Because it's like, I'm sure she did, but it was like, the thing where she says to Bob, I maybe spent too much of my life just remembering. Because remember her father said, what's remembered lives? Mm-hmm. But then she tells Bob, I maybe spent too much of my life just remembering. To the point where that's all she knows. So she probably stayed in that town after Beau died because it's what she knew. But then
I don't think it's because it was what she knew. It was because she wanted to keep Beau's memory alive. It wasn't there wasn't like as though she had a routine there. She was doing random jobs, teaching people, cleaning up. To be honest, she said that she was there in that town because of him. She didn't have any connection to that town.
Right.
So for me, it just felt like, okay, this is basically fate saying, you were meant to wander. Mm-hmm. And she's not some crazy bum or anything. She's responsible. She
goes to work.
She basically follows a certain path. It's like Amazon, then whatever this RV
Park
thing
was.
is, and then what was it, wall drug, or whatever other plan she was planning to do. She pretty much had a set plan, and she knew exactly what paths to follow. She made friends with people who knew what was going on, who helped her out, who taught her things. And we follow her through 1 year of this lifestyle, and at the end of the movie, we're back kind of at the beginning, and she's going to do it all over again. She didn't make some change that changed her life.
She didn't. No, she didn't. But there were, I guess, concessions made. Like towards the end, she gets rid of the storage unit, which
She gets rid of
that. She just doesn't put value on any of that. That's all in the past, and that stays in the past, and she doesn't need it because she's moving forward.
She doesn't need any of that stuff. And there's no point. Why would you pay for that?
Right.
You know, she doesn't need to ever go back to Empire ever again. And that was probably her visiting that house for the last time. Just, that's it. Goodbye. Done. And now I walk out the back door to that desert. Mm-hmm. To that endless expanse that was the only thing that she really liked about Empire. Because that's what she wants.
Maybe. I mean, I think this is based off a book, so it'd be interesting to see what the book is like. But the performances were great. From what I've read, most of those people are nomads. A lot of those people that were in the film are just people that follow this particular lifestyle, which is pretty interesting. I don't know. I don't think I could last out in nature like that.
Nah, pooping in a bucket.
Yeah, that would be...
No, thank you.
Living in a Prius, no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, and all these people are there for different reasons. A lot of their stories are sad.
I think most of it's rooted in grief, obviously, and loss.
A lot of them are, but some of them aren't.
That young guy.
Some of them chose. Well, we don't really know what was the story behind the young guy, but I was thinking more of the lady who was like, "Oh, my coworker, he was like a week from retirement, got liver failure, died with his boat in his garage." You know, and she's like, "I ain't gonna do that.
Right.
I'm here because this is what I want.
Yeah,
my boat's here. It's out in the desert.
Sailing, in the desert. Yeah.
So people choose different paths of life. I don't think this was meant to be a story of somebody just wallowing in their depression and giving up on life, because if that was the case, then this film went nowhere.
It would have been a different movie.
It was sort of just an exploration of this woman's character and trying to understand why she's chosen the life she's chosen. It was, and like I said, I mean, don't go in this expecting any sort of amazing turns or really any sort of life-altering moments or anything like that. There's barely a raised voice in this movie. There isn't any conflict, really.
No.
The biggest drama is when her van breaks down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay. It's not generally my cup of tea. I wasn't bored.
I wasn't bored either.
I guess
this is like would this be considered a slice of life movie?
This is definitely a slice of life movie. I mean, even though it's like not a slice of an ordinary life, it's still a slice of life because, like I said, nothing really significant happens. You think, oh, is this going to be a romance? No, it's not. They never really move beyond a close friendship, her and Dave. Mm. Nothing really happens where she suddenly like changes her point of view on the world. It wasn't even like she started out awash in some sort of crushing depression. It was just she was pretty even keel throughout the entire movie. She was just living her life, doing the best she could, going with the flow, and that's how she ended up too. I mean, I'm sure she'll see her sister again. I'm sure she'll pay Dave a visit. Maybe she'll visit Linda May. She'll find another friend who dies and she'll throw a rock on the fire for them too. She'll see Santa Claus again. She'll work at the dinosaur burger joint, and she'll work at Amazon, and she'll work at that I don't even know what that place was. Was it just like an RV park where she was like sort of doing maintenance work and whatnot?
Or something like a greeter or something.
She'll do that too.
I have to say, for a movie that's not dialogue heavy, a lot of emotion and story felt like it was conveyed through facial expressions. Frances McDormand, I loved her face. Her face was lovely in this movie. Whether she was making a face or just being meditative or just contemplating, standing, everything about her performance was really, really, really well done, and I just really enjoyed her. I can't say enough about her performance. I think it was really spectacular. Again, it's interesting that so much mood and feeling is created without words, but obviously that's the mark of good acting in this, and the cinematography in this is very lovely too. Some of these shots are just breathtakingly beautiful. You forget how pretty the country can be. And
wide expanses, just
wide open,
nature.
Expansive spaces. But the other thing that I thought was interesting was this whole, here is this small speck of human in this vast landscape. And it was just interesting to me because I think she purposely chose this solitude because she could have lived with her sister. She could have moved to a different town and started a new life. She could have had a life with Dave. Dave was more than happy to embrace her. He even mentions that he spoke to his son, because it was his son's house. He spoke to the son about having her stay, and they were fine with it. The daughter-in-law seemed like, oh, I'm glad you're here. Dave talks about you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So she chose this life.
Yeah.
She chooses to be alone, I guess. She doesn't seem to want to forge any kind of relationships. Maybe the hurt and the pain of losing.
This is what I've been saying.
Well, I guess I understand that, but it's just so bizarre because it's like
some people are like that. Some people
yeah, I guess.
Some people just. There's nothing wrong with
no,
wanting
there
to be
isn't.
alone.
But it's. I wish there was more backstory to how she got there. I guess.
Yeah,
That's where I feel like you miss so much because it's like, granted, you're taking it at face value, and a lot of things. Obviously, people bring different interpretations and different life experiences to things, and I'm looking at this movie as the lens of a woman. You see it from your male perspective, so we're obviously going to interpret certain things differently, but it would have been nice to have some of those dots connected.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but I'll be honest, through the minor glimpses that you see, you piece it together. This is a sort of film where if you pay attention, and you might be wrong. I might be wrong about my interpretations of everything, but based upon the evidence that they show in the film, you get these ideas, and that's pretty much where I was coming from, where I believe that this is what she wanted all along. And even though she ended up with living in this small town, it was part of an attempt to just get away from everything. Maybe she wanted to leave because, I don't know, did her father die?
I'm assuming her parents.
I mean, her parents are have clearly passed on, but she seemed to have a very close relationship with her dad.
Sure. Yeah.
He's mentioned a lot. There seems to be a lot of emotion attached to physical items that he passed on to her. Maybe he passed away, and that was like, okay, well, there's nothing really here for me. They never mention the mother.
Yeah, that's
relationship
true.
with the mother. She had a relationship with her sister. She set her up with her husband. Clearly, that wasn't a close enough thing where she wanted to stay. It was
and
more
be part of Dolly's
be
life.
part of her, be part of Dolly's life, and even the fact that she when they describe how she introduced her sister to her husband, she's like, this guy's a very close friend of mine. I knew him before Dolly did. Why wasn't she with him? She just didn't want that. And then so she got the hell out of town. She met some guy. Within a couple of months, they were married. Once she was free to live her life, be impulsive, do whatever the hell she wanted. She ended up marrying some guy, clearly loved the guy, because she's followed him to this town in the middle of nowhere. Even after he died, she felt strongly enough about him to keep his memory alive based upon a piece of advice that her dad gave her. Clearly she has the men in her life influenced her to a great degree or meant a lot to her. And now that the husband's gone and now the town is gone, it's like I can go back to what I wanted in the beginning. And she does it. She's doing it, and then there's Dave comes along. Does she want that again? Does she want to get stuck in another town in the middle of nowhere because that guy has an attachment to it? Back in the van.
Right.
Not this time. Dave was a nice guy. She probably would have stayed with Dave if Dave had been on the road with her.
Yeah.
In fact, I would probably think she probably went to go visit Dave just to be like, okay, you got to see your grandson. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
But Dave had no intention. You nailed it when she said your tire's flat.
Right.
And he doesn't care.
Right.
Why would he? He's got a grandson. He's living on a big, beautiful farm. His relationship with his son is better than ever. He said they weren't really that close that he forgot how to be a dad. And she's sitting on the step watching them play a little piano duet together.
Right.
Dave was happy. He wasn't going anywhere. And though she may have liked Dave, she wasn't going to get stuck there with him.
Right.
Because what she wanted was the freedom to roam. And what does she do? The next several scenes is just a montage of her hugging redwood trees and swimming nude in rivers. You know? This is what she wanted. She didn't want anybody.
But if Bo had still been alive...
If Bo had still been alive, she would have stayed in that town.
Until it collapsed.
Until, even after, if he was alive, she would have stayed with him in the town. She would have stayed with him and gone wherever
he was going.
Wherever he was going. She was loyal.
Right.
You know?
But it's...
Loyal even after death.
But it's interesting because I guess she felt no loyalty to her sister. That was definitely a strange relationship.
It's not a male...
And it didn't seem like she did anything to foster that relationship. And to me at least, it almost looked like she felt bad when Dolly told her, maybe I should have told you this before, but blah, blah, blah. And then you have that scene that's very impactful because Dolly goes there and says to her, you saw me. And that was so important, and I needed that, and I still needed that. And I would have really appreciated it, like having you in my life. You're my sister. Mm-hmm. And they focus, there's a focus on Fern's face. And like you could see, like this has impacted her, but not enough to obviously change her ways, because the first chance she gets, she has to flee, right? And she leaves. But it's still interesting because I think that, I don't know, I get the impression that Fern, the person, has a very hard time connecting, even with people that know her like her family. So she distances herself and she picks and chooses who she wants to have relationships with. She has a lovely relationship with Linda May, mm-hmm. until Linda May decides, I'm going to go back and build my home, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with Dave. I think it's pretty obvious that he wanted something with her, even from before he actually says it. And she's not stupid. she knows it too, but she plays it very cagey. She's not giving him anything extra because she can't. She doesn't feel about him the way that he feels about her. I think she likes him, and I think maybe even you said that, like, she doesn't allow herself to like him.
Yeah.
And is it because she thinks that, oh, he's going to be another beau, he'll get sick and he'll die?
I think it's not about being sick and dying. I think it's just she doesn't want him to be another beau where she cannot travel. She wants to be a nomad.
Yeah, she seemed happy in this lifestyle. For sure.
She didn't. Even throughout the whole thing, you need some help. No, I'm good. I don't need any help.
She, to me, that seemed like she was very proud, right? Even in the beginning.
It feels like pride in the beginning, but I think it was more than that. I think it was, no, this is what I want.
Right. You don't have to help me because I'm fine.
I don't want to live in your house. I don't want to sleep in that bed. Mm-hmm. This is what I want. I'm living in my van, and this is my van is my home.
Right. She tells the girl that she used to tutor, right? She's like, I'm not homeless. I'm houseless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. What would you give this movie on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd probably give it a 7.
I too would give it a 7. It was a good film. There was a lot of beauty to it. There was a lot to think about. I think
it's a good film.
The performances
beautiful.
Were lovely, and it's interesting because, again, from what I've read, a lot of the people that play the nomads are actual nomads.
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming from a place of authenticity.
Yeah.
Frances McDormand's performance was lovely and beautiful and heartbreaking at times and joyous in others. She did a fantastic job. I think overall as a film, I don't know that this was my favorite film. It didn't really wow me, but it definitely was an interesting movie watching experience.
For me, it was, like you said, it was good performances and beautifully shot, but I feel like I understood where the characters were coming from and what she wanted to do with her life. But like I said, it didn't wow me. The story just, I don't know. This isn't something that I could personally relate to. I mean, I often like being alone. You know me. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Not that
alone.
Not that
much alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I'm like, there are times where I do.
Solitude is good.
But not forever.
Not that much.
Yeah.
To the point where I would probably be too afraid to do that. Driving through the desert in a seriously, she could have died.
And no one would know.
Yeah. Her car broke down. Done.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, there's so much danger there too, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like this is one of those movies that I would revisit it every once in a while, not anytime soon. I feel like I've had my fill of it, and it's okay. But it is thought-provoking, I think. And I think it's interesting in that when you get to be at a certain age, I think your thought process changes. And I think Fern's character definitely goes through that. And I think the later in life, you kind of reconcile all the pieces of it, right? You had the, what was it, Schwanky? You had the woman that was sick.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, she kind of goes into this whole speech about how she's lived a good life.
Mm-hmm.
Just being out in nature and, like, what was it, like seeing, like, I think it was like birds or something.
Yeah, and the video she shows at the end is what she's talking about.
Right. She's like, and if she died in that moment, she would have been fine. That was also interesting because I think people come to this realization. Bob, or was it Bill? I completely forgot.
Santa Claus?
Santa Claus, yes. and that was Bill, right? When he talks about his son, here's something that was completely devastating, and he turned that sorrow into a positive because he channeled it into being of service to others. Sort of like her thing about, like, what was it? The thing about things that are remembered never die.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Bill and his son, how by being of service to others, especially people in that later part of their life journey, and creating this network of friends and acquaintances and resources, right, that they could all pull from that could benefit each other. He kept the spirit of his son alive in that way. So yeah, there's a lot of poignant beauty in this, and it's definitely worth watching. I would recommend it. I think if you haven't seen it, it's still playing on Hulu currently. I think it's going to get pulled soon, so you might want to get in on that before it goes away. But it's definitely a treat. It's not a short movie, right? What did we say? It's an hour
Almost 2
and
hours.
48 minutes, 47 minutes. It's rated R. It's definitely a good watch. I think it's definitely a good watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. That's it from us, and we'll be back soon. Good night.
Good night.